If talented young people don't go to university, and then where are tomorrow's engineers and doctors going to come from? And we all lose out.
Regular production.
I mean, we're talking a lot about your music and innovation, but it's also about giving people that space to be creative and that political space to be creative as well.
The main reason why a lot of musicians came out in support of Corbyn is because of the policies that he promotes. It's important to remember that people my age and younger, and I'm not particularly young, I'm in my 40s, but people my age and younger have only ever known the leaders of the main political parties to agree about the need for what they call neoliberal economic policies. And really they've only argued with each other about the detail, you know, how far and how fast do we deregulate big business, how far and how fast do we cut public spending, and so on. And what that's led to is the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. It's led to a sort of a casualisation of work that a lot of young people don't like. They don't like the precarity of being on 0 hours contracts and so on. And of course it led to the 2008 economic crash that we've all paid for via austerity politics. And by the way, don't forget that the austerity package was put together by the coalition government. We shouldn't let the Liberal Party off in that discussion. So what you have with Corbyn, for the first time, is a leader of a major party who has broken with that. I mean, not in a particularly radical way. I actually wish he was more radical and more left-wing. But he is at least talking about redistributing wealth and nationalising parts, you know, utilities that clearly aren't being run well by private companies like the railways. These are popular policies with all people, including musicians.
Especially in this musical climate where, you know, you get viral sensations and YouTube stars becoming like musicians and, you know, doing really well, like in terms of sales and views in their music. I think there is a genuine sort of desire for authenticity in music, and it's one of those things that, like, again, my age demographic often say about politicians and people who are involved in the political process, whereby it's like, these people aren't authentic, these people don't know what we're going through. And I think with Jeremy Corbyn, I think there was a great sort of wave of understanding that even if you didn't agree with him, like policy for policy on everything, even if he wasn't your ideal person you wanted leading the Labour Party or being the Prime Minister of the country, that there was a genuine level of authenticity there. And I think, especially with like urban music, like rap, grime, like garage and jungle and drum and bass and stuff in this country, I think it came up from a very sort of authentic culture, and if they can immediately recognise that, they will follow that.
I feel like the youth of today, I think when it comes to the voting, we were so like when it all went left. Because I just remember everyone being so angry. I remember thinking, all these old people, all they did was vote, they're gonna die soon anyway, so why do we even care? Why do we even care what they're saying? Like, I'll just sit there thinking, why are these old people even voting? Like, literally, you're not the one that can deal with all the repercussions after you voted. It's all us. But it was good to see everyone just like getting behind it and everyone getting really active on it, because first time I've seen like my whole timeline just talking about one thing. I was like, oh, no one's talking rubbish today, everyone's actually talking about the elections.
I think that with the left-leaning fans, people who have been active politically before, I think they know that Jeremy Corbyn has absolutely the best credentials probably in the whole of the House of Commons when it comes to fighting against racism in all its forms, and indeed being on the right side of history in general. I mean, people my age will remember him marching with us against the Iraq War in 2003. People younger than me will have seen him, will have seen pictures of him on Facebook and social media being arrested for campaigning against apartheid in the 1980s, when, by the way, the Conservative government supported apartheid and described Nelson Mandela as a terrorist. I also think that political musicians, particularly people like Loki and others who have been directly involved in the question of solidarity for Palestinians, they understand that it is completely outrageous to conflate criticisms of the political project called Zionism, to conflate that with being in any way anti-Jewish. So I think that the more left-wing musicians won't be persuaded at all, and I hope very much that no one else will be.
I am a journalism graduate who works in the journalism industry, and I believe about 10% of what I read in the press, including stuff that gets published by the people who sign my paychecks. It's very difficult to sort of sit down and like make an individual person by person judgment on someone's characteristics when that person is meant to represent a large group of people. Do I think that Jeremy Corbyn sharing a stage with X, Y, and Z people who've made X, Y, and Z comments, from a PR perspective, is that the greatest thing for him? No. Maybe that's why so many people love him, because he doesn't really think like, oh, this is a PR situation. He thinks there's an opportunity to have an open discourse between two sides that clearly don't agree. If I can position myself as a neutral person, or if I can be there in some sort of listening and enabling capacity, then that's the sort of discussion that he wants to have. And, you know, to be honest, okay, do I agree with every single sentiment expressed by every single person that Jeremy Corbyn has appeared on a lineup with? Absolutely not. Am I learned and well-read enough to know that expressing discontent with the situation in Palestine doesn't make you an anti-Semite? Yes, I am. Am I also slightly concerned by how the media has been whipped into a frenzy over things that Jeremy Corbyn may or may not have said, or people he may or may not have had lunch with? But we can very quickly forget about members of the Conservative Party using phrases like in the woodpile, like they're commonplace, like it's something you forgot that you said, like you didn't even realise it was a gaffe. So my question is, why is there so much outrage when it's deemed that this person sat down across the table from someone who held this opinion, but people who are actually elected to represent constituencies in this country have shared rhetoric that's Islamophobic, they've shared rhetoric that's sexist, they've shared rhetoric that's racist, and, you know, it's sort of like one side of the media clearly cares about this and one side of the media is clearly willing to do anything.